and the Democrats are criminals. You're locking up guys from smoking drugs and trafficking people across the thing. The bad government's doing it. Right now.
Right.
We're going to sue the bosses. We're going to sue the Democrats as civilians because they're supposed to be agents representing the people they voted for. The agents. I'm a sports agent. If I don't have represent my clients, they fire me. It's time to fire. Don't let the Democrats have that stupid convention here next year. Enough's enough. All I see, right, is the citizens of Chicago marching to the gas chamber. Ever since these scumbags came across.
You know, guys, there's this saying in politics. You never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, allow a good crisis to go to waste. Those right there are the words of former Chicago mayor and former Obama chief advisor, Rahm Emanuel. You never let a good crisis go to waste. Of course, a lot of times these crises are actually created by the administration that's in charge. So what they love to do is they love to create a crisis and they love to turn right back around and say, you know what, we're going to fix this problem. And then they do something that appears to look like they're actually fixing it. However, I did make this comment a long time ago, and don't worry, I'll get to the point of this video here in a second, because this is kind of the theme here. I did say a long time ago that when this administration came in, they were coming in with not so good intentions. They were coming in looking to actually screw the country up, actually make it a lot worse than what it already was. Of course, many of us have kind of resigned to the fact that America has had problems for a very long time, and we're just all going through the motions until the bullets start flying. But then again, though, at the same time, if I say something like that, and of course, if I continue to go on in that direction, YouTube will find a way to demonetize the video. So I'm not really going to do that. So instead, I'm going to focus, for the most part, on the political aspect of this entire crisis. You see, when I said what I said earlier, like 2 seconds ago, about the administration coming in with bad intentions, I also said this 2 years ago. Well, I also said something else to go on top of this, and I'll give you guys some various examples. That's what this entire video is designed to do. It's designed to give you examples, to explain exactly why it is that the Biden administration is about to build 20 miles worth of wall. 20 miles worth of wall against a border that's over 2,000 miles long. Not really anything to pat yourself on the back about. But here's the thing. When you create a crisis and then you want to come in there and actually try to do something to try to alleviate the crisis, it automatically gives out the faux interpretation that you're trying to fix things, when in reality you're not. It's just something that's being done to make the angry crowd a little bit less angry. That's all the hell it is. So what was I saying about this whole coming in the office with bad intentions? Well, you see, the idea for these people was to come into the office, and of course, what they were going to do is they were going to try to enact their plan, even though they didn't have a Senate majority enough to actually sign bad legislation, because you need 60 senators to approve legislation unless you want to use the nuclear option. Of course, that was used in the previous administration. It was used in the administration before that, when Harry Reid decided to use the nuclear option to get Supreme Court justices nominated at 51 votes rather than 60, the way it's supposed to be. Presidents do it all the time. And of course, they tried to eliminate the filibuster this time around for good, but of course, that more than likely is not going to occur, because even to get rid of the filibuster, you still needed 60 votes to do so. Of course, their voters were under the impression that you only needed 51, and of course, we're talking about Kristen Sinema, who, by the way, his entire record shows that she's really just a good old-fashioned commie, even though we had a bunch of conservative voices out there, quote-unquote conservative voices like Jack Posobiec and Mike Cernovich, saying that we needed to adopt her. This also concluded Cassandra McDonald, formerly known as Cassandra Fairbanks. You see, this administration screws up even the screw-up. They're intentionally trying to screw things up, and they actually screw up in the process of trying to screw things up. You see, if the Biden administration was smart, they would simply say, look, I guess, a wall was needed. Maybe the previous guy was right. Maybe he'll be quiet about the wall for political purposes, but he can't even do that, as you guys will see here.
That Donald Trump is right.
We need the wall, and it has to be built, and we want to build it fast. We're going to build the wall. It's going to be built. And we have to build the wall. And by the way, the wall is being built.
By building a wall, but it's not because Grandpa had a come to MAGA moment on the border crisis. Joe says he had no choice.
I'll answer one question on the border wall. The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated. I can't stop that.
Do you have a disagreement with his Department of Homeland Security Secretary?
I want to tell you what the president said and what your colleague asked him. He said, no, he doesn't believe that the border wall is effective.
Speaking in direct contradiction to what his own Homeland Security Secretary says.
I hear you. I'm speaking for the president. This is something that we were required by law, and we are complying. This is an administration that does believe in the rule of law. DHS is required to comply by the law. We are complying by the law. DHS is complying by the law.
He said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. So something changed. What?
You want us to break the law? Is that what you want?
Why not fight them more?
Congress appropriates the funding. We asked them to not use that funding for that particular purpose. They denied it, and now we're complying with the law.
Of course. Mayorkas forced to put out a statement moments ago claiming he did not contradict Biden. It's also confusing. And he says walls are not the answer. Yet in the next paragraph, he admits they're still being forced to build one. Meanwhile, Trump is gorging on Biden's border flip-flop, saying, quote, so interesting to watch crooked Joe Biden break every environmental law in the book to prove that I was right. Will Joe Biden apologize to me and America? And while Trump waits for Biden to bend the knee, liberal cities are crying uncle. Chicago residents are fed up with migrants flooding their city.
That's the simple solution is no. Turn the buses around.
We come in a community of black people where we already get the low scraps. And then you want to take the little scraps, the resources that we have, and put us at the bottom of the barrel? That's not fair.
You cannot keep bringing immigrants in. The city does not have the money.
You cannot track them. You ain't tracking them good at the police station. You don't know their name, but you want to spread them all over the city.
It is unsanitary, it's unsafe, and it's just not right.
A lot of things to complain about when it comes to Karine Jean-Pierre. I mean, the administration is full of nothing but good old-fashioned diversity hires. Pete Buttigieg was hired because he was a gay white man. Karine Jean-Pierre is the press secretary because she's black and gay. It's the only reason why she's even there. I'm actually surprised she hasn't been fired, but then again, though, at the same time, if Biden was to fire her, it would probably anger the diversity crowd. You see, that's the reason why this is being done. You see, Biden does not want to come out and say we need the wall because that right there will upset the open borders crowd. And of course, if Karine Jean-Pierre, which by the way, she can't exactly do her job properly, if she's suddenly be fired, next thing you know, you're angering the black base of your crowd. Not to mention the fact you've already put a bunch of illegals in these areas, these cities, which by the way, a lot of people want to point the blame at Greg Abbott for, but the truth is this right here. Even though Greg Abbott said he would be sending these illegals to all these very, very big blue cities, the Department of Homeland Security under Alexander Mayorkas and even Biden himself could have stepped in and said, you know what? This thing has gotten completely out of hand. We're putting our foot down. We're going to go ahead and put an end to this entire thing. We're going to send these people back, or we're going to send these people to a different city. Maybe we'll spread them out to Los Angeles. Maybe we'll send them to San Francisco, two other sanctuary cities, by the way, or Seattle or Portland, Oregon. I don't think Portland would survive. I mean, Portland's already dead. Maybe Seattle would not either. But those areas are very, very, very white. You figure if any of these places needed a culture shock, it would be those two cities. And you can also throw San Francisco in there as well, seeing how San Francisco is pretty much for the most part nothing but white liberals. I mean, if you really and truly want to upset white liberals, just send them to those places over there. You'll see exactly how loving these people really and truly are. Obviously, people like people who live in Chicago, black people who live in New York, and of course, people that are about to find out in Boston. This one's really going to go over well when you start sending people to Boston. You're really going to see who these white liberals really and truly are. They feel like their neighborhoods have been fully bogarted. You got people collecting $7,000 a month from the federal government just to be coming across. You got work visas being released to these people, which is actually illegal. I went back and looked at that, said that you actually can't really do that right away. And of course, you've got an extremely cold winter coming in. Of course, in the states of New York, the states of Illinois, they kind of feel it the worst. Two of the coldest places in the United States, especially during winter. And this right here is expected to be a very bad winter across all of the East. And what I mean by the East is everything east of the Mississippi. This right here is said to be an extremely cold winter. And you've got these shelters are running out of room. You can't produce any more shelters. You're not getting any more taxpayer money. So you got to ask yourself a question. 20 miles of wall against a border that is 2,000 miles wide. And also to go on top of this, the Biden administration is using the excuse that this money was appropriated or was signed in the appropriations bills. Don't get me started on that because we just had a House Speaker get removed, and I'm a little bit conflicted because I quite frankly don't like Kevin McCarthy, but I also don't like Nancy Mace either. I mean, if anybody needs to go, it's Nancy Mace. It might be primary, it's Nancy Mace, but Kevin McCarthy needs to go too. He was a part of that young gun set of congressmen, which included Paul Ryan and Eric Cantor, two very polished turds, but still at the same time, you can polish a turd all you want, but at the end of the day, it's still a piece of crap. Fact of the matter is this right here. This administration has got to be the most incompetent administration we've ever had. As I said before, they are screwing up the actual screw-up. However, I would be giving you guys a bit of a disservice if I did not explain the whole art of screwing up the screw-up or screwing up something and then trying to sweep in and actually rescue the situation so that way voters are a little bit less angry. Let me go ahead and set the scene for you guys. So you got a lot of migrants coming over. We've done a lot of videos on this, and of course, you've got these people of color who live in these areas, and these people who live in these areas are a little upset that they're being replaced. They voted for the current administration, and therefore they're getting what they voted for. Even though they say they did not vote for it, they're getting actually what it is that they vote for. So here's the thing. How does this happen? How do you actually do this? So let's go back in time. The year was 2012. If you recall the 2012 presidential election, Republicans nominated an extremely weak nominee in Mitt Romney. We were told by Ann Coulter that this guy right here was the greatest person, the greatest candidate Republicans ever produced. She would then turn right back around in 2016 and do a book called In Trump We Trust. And of course, Trump would end up winning the election. So people thought she was a bit of a savant because she got that one correct. When in reality, what really happened was, and I'm a Trump voter, and I'm telling you right now, what really happened was that Trump actually got lucky. What happened was that Jill Stein, she pulled away some Hillary Clinton support. She pulled away some Bernie Sanders support. Gary Johnson pulled away a lot of support from Republicans who did not want to vote for Donald Trump, and a lot of people who did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton, who were also on the left as well. That's actually what happened, and Trump barely got in office. If Gary Johnson was not there, Trump's victory would have been much, much larger. All you got to do is just look at the numbers because it was an extremely low turnout election. Still, at the same time, she was an awful candidate. But people still think that Ann Coulter is a savant when in reality she's just a crackhead bag of bones who just writes books to get money. And of course, she got that one correct, but she never really truly meant to get that one correct. So therefore, you really truly can't trust her. I'm talking about the conservative side of things. But still, getting back on topic, because you see, if Ann Coulter had been smart, she would have been explaining to people that Democrats were going out of their way to create disasters, create problems, so that way they could send some people in there to actually take care of the problem. So let me give you guys a good example of what I mean. Gas prices, 2012, they were through the roof. It was one of the main sticking points the Republican Party had. So, in that election, we had a lot of back and forth on Sean Hannity. This is back in the days where I really consumed a lot of Fox News, because Fox News, quite frankly, was entertaining. It was almost like watching WWE wrestling, which is exactly the playbook they've been using against us. We'll do another video on that in the future. Here's the deal. Steve Hahn, the former press secretary for Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, he was on with Sean Hannity. And if I could find the clip, I'll link it in the description box for you guys. They were talking about gas prices, and Sean Hannity was talking about how high it was, and Chris Hahn said, but you'll see us lower the price of gas before the election occurs. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because it's the month of October, and of course, to go on top of this, you'll probably start seeing the price of gas go down. It naturally does when the weather begins to turn, especially when it gets colder. It typically stays that way till sometime in spring. You would figure, if anything, the price of gas would be low during the summer when people are traveling, but as you guys can see, another game is being ran on you. So what happened was that the price of gas actually went down before the election. It normally does anyways. Sean Hannity didn't do a good job of calling that or explaining. Instead, he jumped to the argument of, so has Obama made a deal with the Saudis? Not exactly the best argument in the world. Well, it may be true, but it's not exactly the best argument in the world. At that point in time, people had already noticed that the price of gas was going down in the fall anyway, so this blanketed tip was very, very easy for people to fall for. I mean, all you had to do was just call it out and say, look, the price of gas is going to go right back up in the spring. If you'd have mentioned that right there, people might have listened to you. But they actually did not do this. So what happened? The price of gas went down. Obama got reelected. Republican voters did not come out. And, of course, a lot of this was because the fire that was in their system, the discontent for Obama, had been lightened just a little bit. The exact same way black voters are pissed off about this migrant crisis, the exact same way that white liberals may be pissed off when they find out that 20 miles of wall is being built, and these right here are the no-wall crowd. So essentially what's going on is that they create a problem, and now they're coming in to try to swoop in and try to save the problem or try to provide a little levity to the situation, not realizing that people don't seem to understand it's a 2,000-mile border and only 20 miles of wall is being built, which is barely even piss in a bucket when you actually think about it. It's absolutely nothing. Nothing is that's being done here is actually going to fix the problem. So what happens to all the migrants who are here illegally? You don't send them out. Let me give you guys another quote. Let me give you guys another example. 2014, Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown, that incident, I'm pretty sure you guys heard about that. Well, I'm not going to sit here and talk much about the Michael Brown incident, even though it's definitely on my list of things to talk about in 2024 when we start doing stories. Michael Brown, the situation, hands up, don't shoot, resulted in a lot of riots. The Obama administration, Eric Holder, the Attorney General, had already concluded that the cop was actually in the right in that situation. They'd already concluded it. There was also another incident that actually occurred as well, where a boy went to a convenience store with a steak knife and tried to rob that place. He was actually unsuccessful. He got outside. The cop showed up. He was sitting there holding the steak knife, and I remember this because we saw it in Law Enforcement Academy. You can actually go to the news station archive and find the video, and he decided to wave that little steak knife, just a steak knife. He's about 10, 15 feet away from the cops, and all of a sudden he tries to charge him. What do you think the cops did? They put him down. That's their right to do so. The Obama administration could have fixed that entire ordeal with the riots if they had actually sent people in right away, which they would do after a few days. The idea was try to pump up the whole social justice, the racial injustice narrative is what they were trying to pump up. Cops are bad, all that type of stuff. And then we're going to send the cops in there to quell the situation. Send them in a little bit too late. These people obviously didn't calculate the situation correctly. Now, I've been going on a long time trying to explain to you guys, give you guys some examples of the political nature of this nation, the political nature of our politicians to create a problem or make a problem worse, then come in and try to rescue it. However, the difference between the Obama administration and the difference between this administration is that this administration is actually much, much more incompetent. People can actually see through the BS. People can see through the lies. People can see that these people actually manufacture a problem, and now they're trying to pretend like they're actually trying to save it. But this administration is not very bright. If anything, what they would just simply do is come out and say that the previous administration was correct. We needed a wall. Trump did not get the entire wall built. He only got about 300 or 400 miles of it up. I don't want to say it was actually the California side, when in reality the Arizona wall needed to be reinforced because right now it's just a good old-fashioned fence. You needed to rebuild the wall over there and actually make it much, much stronger. You could have done this, but obviously they're not going to do it because these people had nefarious purposes from the very start. Bring in 2 million illegals and try to get them to vote Democrat. So that way it would secure their elections for like the next two election cycles. And of course, they'll come up with more and more ways to try to secure those elections later on. But as you guys can see, these people are totally incompetent. These people came in with the goal to completely screw up the country, and now they are actually screwing up their own screw up. That right there, my friends, is what happens when you vote for diversity hires. That is what happens when you have these people. You get people who don't have any brains. They can't even competently fix the situation that they created. And you figure you screw things up on purpose so that way you can carefully and craftily and very, very much in detail fix the problem. But that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is that these people who had this plan are actually screwing it up and making it 10 times worse. And that, my friends, is the reason why it is that the Biden administration is building 20 miles of wall. They're not building 20 miles of wall because it's the right thing to do. They're doing this to try to lower the temperature in the room when it comes to black voters, even though they're obviously going to alienate the white liberals. But still at the same time, though, the white liberals are NPCs anyway, so they'll probably go out and support it regardless because they're NPCs. I would love to call them communists. I would love to call them fascists. I would love to call them Nazis. But at the end of the day, they're really just non-player characters. They just do what the hell you tell them to do. I mean, that's really and truly what they are. But that's the only reason why it is that they're telling people we're going to put some wall up. And then to go on top of this, they're saying, well, it was already appropriated in Congress. We need to go ahead and put this up. No. What Biden is doing is exactly what Obama did. Creating a crisis, making the crisis a lot worse, and then trying to swoop in and save it, even though the saving is not even really a half measure. It's just another turd measure is all it is, to try to keep people quiet and keep people not screaming so much. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself a question. At this point in time, will it actually work? I don't think it will. Guys, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're new to the channel. Please leave a comment in the comment section. Please share the video, pass it around to friends and family. Post it to Facebook, post it to Twitter, and I'll see you guys later.